I walked in today and they said, so what's the topic? And I said, well, give me a minute to think of that, and that usually is what happens because they need to put them on the CDs and all that for you folks. And then I thought, I've got one. Ghosts and guidance. That's what I called it. Ghosts and guidance. So I quickly grabbed a quote from A Course in Miracles that I'm going to share in just a moment. But it may not make sense to have a topic like that, but it'll make sense in a moment. There's this thing we hear of, spirit and soul and all these terminologies. There's something called ghosts. And I'm not trying to talk about your haunted house at home. I'm saying there are these things we call ghosts. And technically, ghosts are a lot like our unhealed wounds in that they haunt us. So when we think about and talk about ghosts and all these variations of what ghosts are, remember that since everything is in the mind, a ghost haunting your house is probably or likely there still. Even though it seems arbitrary or accidental, I didn't know it was there, I just moved in. Somehow, they can only be there if there's a resonance with our unhealed issues, our unhealed wounds. As we heal and clear things, ghost-like things of the planet and earth tend to fall away. Because there's this resonance. Things are attracted. This, like attracts like. So there's if we think about it, there's lots of different concepts of spirits, and we don't want to confuse them. There's spirit, the capital S, which means the God, I am self. Don't confuse that with ghosts. There's a divine spirit that is God, and we have that within us. And there is a soul, which is the spark that sort of jumped off of the fire of God. That's my soul, and that soul has now become my evolving self. I still have a pure, perfect spirit, God self. That's not the one that's evolving. My soul that thinks it, left God, is now on this evolutionary journey. So a couple of the forms of voices that you hear in your head or that exist are, you have a spiritual self and you have a soul. And both of those are trying to help us get home. But there's a problem. There are other voices, and we listen too much to those other voices. The Bible tells us, choose whom ye will serve, God or manna, but it's also saying spirit or the ego. Which voice do you want to hear? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. All those duality concepts are trying to teach us something. You're far too lenient of mind wandering, Jesus says in A Course in Miracles. You let your commitment to God be so weak. I believe we need to learn to live in balance. And that means you have a physical self, emotional self, intellectual self, creative self, and a spiritual self. Now, are you allowing each of those expression? Are you allowing a healthy version of all those? Do you have a creative outlet? It could just be regularly during the week. I put on music and I just dance around my house and sing. That's fantastic. As long as you're not taking it for granted. Like, don't just do it and forget you do it. Know it. Acknowledge it. Say to yourself, and if anyone asked you, you could say, yes, I have a creative outlet. If it's just like, no, not really, other than, then you're not getting it yet. At the end of your life, one of the things you're going to want to have accomplished is a balanced, beautiful, perfect life in that sense. So what is your physical outlet? What is your physical expression? Where's your physical temple? Let's say it's health. Don't just say it's health. It is yoga has become my expression of physical mastery, physical healthiness. Then respect it and do it. Whether it's healthy eating, yoga, whatever, but have some sort of healthy physical expression in your life. Then have a healthy expression of emotionality, the emotional center, which is also our psychic self. But what do you do that has that develops a healthiness there? Well, I see a counselor once every so often. That doesn't sound like you're really honoring it. Think of it like a gift. I do counseling. I go to psychotherapy. I see a person that works on inner child work with me. Like, be really happy. So that, again, at the end of the day, when the light beams on you and they say, how did you do? You can say, I left no stone unturned. Balanced. Healthy. Not, well, I'm kind of the intellectual type, I'm not the emotional type. Healthy in all areas. So what do you do? It's exciting to know, wow, if I ask myself, what is your emotional health? What does it look like? For me, I could say my temple is a constant self-observation. I do my best to see what's going on and why, what I'm feeling and why, and to bring happiness forward. I can say I have an answer instead of, well, no, not really. That's not living. What is my mental, intellectual temple? What does that look like? What does my soul, any of us, what does my soul, my heart, my creative expression, what does it look like? Is there anything that you can be happy? It could be, I just practice love and forgiveness. It's my heart is Course in Miracles, whatever it is. Each center, what is your connection and expression? And last but not least, the spiritual. To me, for example, what is your spiritual connection? Well, I go to Unity once in a while. Is that it? Because then if that's it, you're nearly starving. If you think coming here like on a holiday once a year is your spiritual sustenance, you're starving. Some religious people do that. They go to church once a year on a holiday and they think they're covered. In case I die this year, I can always fall back on. Yeah, I was at church on Christmas. That doesn't work. It's supposed to be consistent. Make being at Unity of Sedona consistent. And if this isn't a good enough temple for you, and you know of some other powerful spiritual connection you have somewhere, then do it. Do it fully. You can do two things, that's fine. But have at least one you can call your own. What is your spiritual practice? What is your spiritual temple? And if you say, well, I just like to go out for a walk once in a while. I hope it gets better than that. I mean, it's nice, fresh air, beauty, the red rocks, but that will not necessarily change your consciousness as dramatically and as effectively to where you pass over all you can say, I used to take nice walks. They'll say, well, we'll send you back to another place on planet that has nice walks. I mean, good for you, but what did that do for you spiritually? How did that teach you about your connection to all things and how to love and forgive? How to be a better person? Well, it's not people I like. I like to go for walks away from people because I don't like people. See, you didn't get it. So what is your spiritual practice? And being in community is a major part of that. Ask people who try to do recovery work by themselves and those who use the support of others. There's a difference. Because I know people who I admire who have really tried to get away from drinking, for example, or drugs or whatever, but tried to get away from drinking. And they've done a fairly good job, but I can always tell they're still missing something because they have no support group. So when they collapse into it, to them, it's just another shame that they bury and continue doing the addiction. They don't have that support group. There's something unique about having people say, we're here for you if you fall. Be there for us when we fall. And we work collaboratively. So there are voices that we all hear. Think about this. There's different kinds of spirits, but the spirits, the good, healthy spirits, meaning the Spirit of God and your soul, you know what it does? It tries to teach. Ghosts haunt. Demons torment. Am I talking about beings? I'm talking about our thoughts and beings. But I'm saying that we all have thoughts that torment us. We all have thoughts that haunt us. But we also have thoughts that try to inspire us. There's only one group we should be listening to. The ones that inspire us. The others, get behind me, Satan. That kind of an attitude. Like, no, that ain't going to happen here. Sorry. Out of here. So we have these variations, let's say in history or in our understanding of spirits. We have a spirit that is the divine spark in us. We have a soul. We have an astral self, the part of us that sort of we embody when we leave this body. We're in an astral body. That's what we often appear in as ghosts, to people. And then there's also other kinds of apparitions, phantoms and things like that. But most of these other things are called apparitions and phantoms because they're not real. But we have thoughts that are not real. We have thoughts that are just apparitions. You hear these different terms, spirit and soul and ghost. There's even something called aghast, like when I was aghast, like I was shocked. An aghast is like a etheric part of a ghost. It's when we pass over, our physical body has like an etheric double of it, and sometimes that hangs around on the planet. It's not the same as our ghost, our astral body. An aghast or our etheric body is something that actually makes for all the creepy stories. Beings hanging around graveyards and looking all creepy and Halloweenish. Those are sometimes called aghasts. But there's phantoms. Phantom is something that's sort of, typically it's something that's just appearing and not appearing. It's not really there. It's not actually a person. If it's a person, then it wouldn't be called a phantom. And we also have what's called poltergeists. In German, that's noisy ghost, poltergeist. A noisy ghost. But poltergeists are actually not ghosts. Poltergeists, according to parapsychology, people can say, I have some noise going on in my house. Something creepy is happening. They do study and they say, there's no being in here. You have a poltergeist, which means emotional energy from people is being materialized into activity. Oh, tables are moving. I went into this one house. I shared this story once upon a time, but went into this one house and, they were saying there's something going on and they were all scared. And I said, okay, I walked around, checking out the place. But when I walked in, I noticed one particular child kind of watching me in the corner of my eye. I could tell, but I would not give them any acknowledgement. And I just walked around the house and did that. And I said, okay, so you're good. I told them what's going on. I told the mom what's going on. And what had happened was the mom and dad were in a divorce. And there was a lot of emotional stuff going on. The child was pretty upset about it. And the upset feelings start manifesting as things happening in the household. You follow what I'm saying? Now, does that mean there's an entity we should be talking to in the room? No. It's just an emotional tantrum. It's just like an astral tantrum of somebody. Does that mean the people or the child, or in this case the child, does that mean they actually know they're doing it or that it's happening? No, it's usually just energy that unconsciously is taking form. You see what I'm saying? My point to this is that the spirits, the spiritual, the God spirit is worth listening to. Your soul is the part that's sparked up, that goes lifetime after lifetime, and it's trying to get us home. That's worth listening to. The soul is actually in touch with, or the embodiment of, the Akashic records. So it knows a thing or two, pretty bright to listen to the soul and or God. But all the others, from ghosts, phantom, aghasts, whatever you want to call them, poltergeists, any of these, are they worth listening to? So imagine this. Imagine that these are all actually just thoughts and not entities. We're not talking about creepy characters or anything like that anymore. They're just energies. They're emotions. They're haunting us and or tormenting us. Learn to take control of your thoughts. Learn that there are thoughts to listen to and thoughts to not listen to. Now, if you were in a public place and you had somebody that stood up and there was some meeting you were having and you said, would you like to share? Yes. I would like to suggest that maybe in our community we could do this or that. And people are like, well, that's a pretty good idea. Somebody else, no, that can't be done because of this and because of that. And watch out for this and watch out for that. Because, if you put streetlights in a city, that ETs can find you, and all that kind of thing. Here's what this talk is partly saying. No to voices that are coming from fear. Try that in a meeting, especially in a town like Sedona, and people are going to get all upset with you if you don't allow them to speak. Oh no, we honor all voices in Sedona. Do you understand that what that would have been like if Jesus would have come to Sedona and said, "Get behind me, Satan," to all the people that have to always nag and complain about things? Like, this guy would have been killed way early on in his life. They would have jumped on it. They wouldn't have let him live as long as the people in Jerusalem. They'd have knocked him off right away. Because it's the ego in the people that would have gotten upset that they're not being allowed to voice themselves. But everybody's got such ego, they enable it to each other. Well, I'll let you voice your ego as long as you don't say anything if I voice mine. Then we all just sit around miserable. Someone has to say no. In the household, with your children, or whatever the case may be. I had kids, that were little at one time, obviously, and they'd, come home from school, or I'd pick them up, hey guys, how did it go? And I would hear them talking the way kids do. Well, there's this one kid and they looked really stupid today and they dressed ugly today. And I'd say, guys, and they go, oh God, Dad, can't you just let us say things like that? And I would never say no or bad or you're naughty, or I never dissed them for it. We don't have to judge or harm people for being kind of in a negative space, but I would just say another perspective, just consider speaking a different way, just positively, constructively teach them another alternative. I didn't say, what if God were watching you say that? I didn't go heavy on them, but just give them an alternate option, a different option. So we all have voices, and every one of us in this room has had already in this day, and it's early, at least one already that has been either a demon voice or a ghost kind of a voice, phantom kind of a haunting voice. We've all had it already. It's not having bad voices that makes you bad. It's why are you choosing to listen to them? And it's okay for us to start building spiritual muscles that say no to those voices. I'm just going to keep deferring back to Jesus. Get behind me, Satan. And if you think I'm intense, I'm going to blame him. So, put it on to this guy. If he's going to be that intense, there's nothing wrong with me saying, a more mild version. Say no. Ask yourself, what is the purpose of that thought? So-and-so, I'm looking over there and they're, wow, they're dressed kind of funny. What is the purpose of that thought right now? How will that bring me any closer to anything good in my life? It sounds a little bit too much for some people, but only people that are already allowing the ego to be a rampant addiction in their life. You got to say no to the drugs. You got to say no to the alcohol. You got to say no to the voices that haunt us. Not because I'm shaming and blaming drugs or alcohol. I'm saying the cravings are coming from haunting voices. Just do your best. I'm not saying shame on you. Just do your best. That's all. It is a program that we all need to enter. And not judge how many times did I have that craving today. I only had 5 cravings. I had 10. Oh my God, you must be slow on the move here. I've only had 5 cravings today. It's not like we compete and compare. But what we can do is in ourselves, see it, call it what it is, and then choose. Choose whatever you want. I'm not going to say just only choose the good. Choose what you want. But if you choose the spiritual voice, the soul voice, chances are it brings love, peace, joy, and abundance. Chances are if you allow the voice, the ghosts that haunt you, if you allow the haunting voices to dictate what you're going to do today, chances are it's going to bring anything but love. So our spiritual path is not just something, it's not just a doing, reading and doing and so on, meditations and so on. It's the application that makes us different. The application and the integration, we have to become different people. A Course in Miracles says, the ego's voice is a hallucination. Perfect. The ego's voice is an hallucination. Hallucination. It's not real. So when we say, but I need to be heard, oh, why? You're not real. Just tell it that. Why? You're not real. Hey, Jesus, yes, you've been fasting 40 days and 40 nights. Yep, that's true. I bet you're hungry. Yeah, kind of. Do you see any McDonald's around, Jesus? No, I don't. So what are you going to do? You can turn the rocks to stone. He's going, yeah, that's an interesting concept. Then I could eat. I could even eat a lot. Turn the stones to bread. He could do it. I could eat. I bet I could materialize the finest wines. This would be great. But he's saying that would only fill my stomach, which isn't real, and only momentarily. Like Buddha saying, you'll be hungry again soon. So how does that help you? That's what Jesus meant by man does not live by bread alone, but by the word of God. Connect to listening to the right voice, the word of God, rather than my stomach again. My cravings again. Do not blame and shame yourself for having them. Again, I'm going to repeat that, but don't blame and shame. That's not going to help, because the blame and shame is still the voice of the ego haunting you. And you go, well, wait, if I'm not choosing the voices that haunt me, and when I do, I get down on myself and judge myself for it, and am I not being constructive? No. The same thing you're judging is the thing that's causing you to judge. So it's just the ego disguising itself in a different form of judgment. It's not worth messing with. It's not real. The ego's voice, it's just a hallucination. It's not real. It's a phantom. If you, I used this analogy before, if you wake up in the morning and you've had a bad dream, let's say you had a dream that someone in here, in this room, somehow betrayed you. And then you show up here today going, I can't believe you did that. It's just a dream. Like, they're like, what? I haven't even talked to you for 3 days. Oh, but in my dream you did, and you wouldn't believe what you did to me. Why? How would that be sane? To show up and actually diss someone and give them your little judgmental, furrowed face over something they didn't even do. And then you have to go, oh, that's right. That's all we're talking about here. The ego will keep giving you voices of things that are not even true. They're not even relevant. It'll tell you there's things about you that are not likable when they're not even true. And even if you are behaving in unlikable ways, that's not the real you, so it's not worth obsessing on anyway, even if the ego self pointed it out. And if you get really strong about not caving into judgmental voices and negatives about yourself and others, it'll switch over and say, you're more handsome than all others. Because it'll just try another tactic. It'll go from being the bad cop to the good cop, but there's still a cop trying to arrest you. Still, sorry, still somebody that's got an agenda. And so we have to learn to dismiss all these cases. We have to learn, I have to discern. There's the voice of the spirit, there's the voice of the soul. That's worth listening to. My soul is saying, come home. At least I know that the goal of my soul is God's calling. Let's go. At least I can trust that. Spirit, definitely I can trust. My soul, which is different. Spirit is the presence of God. My soul is the spark of God, still holding the spark. It's just not as fully alive in a flame as the spirit. So my soul is still worth listening to. But all the other voices, the tormenting, the judgments, guys, our unhealed wounds, they haunt us. That's why so many times when I've talked about healing, I've used the metaphor of no rock left unturned. Like, don't hide anything. Just a conversation I had yesterday, I'm recalling, where, I was trying to explain to somebody, all the secrets that they live with and all that. And I'm like, it's not a great idea to have secrets. Well, it's not secret, it's privacy. Let me tell you about privacy, is what I said to them. Privacy is fine. You can have privacy. But if privacy becomes destructive to yourself or someone else, it's actually not privacy, it's an unhealthy secret. And where did it come from? Your choice to have a secret or privacy? No. It came from your fear of facing your wounds. So why are you afraid to face your wounds? See, ask questions. I will not allow it. I allow no phantoms. Try not to sleep with phantoms, guys. Try not to hook up on a dating site called phantoms.com, or whatever. Hotphantoms.com, It's just not worth it. There are people in our lives sometimes that are nothing but sort of materializations of our ghosts, which are our haunting voices. There are people in our lives who are like just materializing, like they say, hi, my name's Joe Blow or whatever, but really, hi, I am one of your demons materializing to make you feel terrible and guilty on a regular basis. And if you can see that, you can bid it farewell. You don't have to judge the person, but you can see it for what it is. That's what happens when we realize the roles or people are playing. I'm talking about a couple of things here. Spirits, ghosts, and apparitions and all that. Historically or like from a dictionary, let's say, you're giving you a description of definition of them all, but I'm connecting it to our thoughts. We have spirit-like thoughts, phantom-like thoughts, and so on. And I'm splitting them apart saying some are worth listening to and some not. And the third part of this is that there are people that will play the roles of those ghosts and those phantoms. They will try to bring up that thing again, that haunts you, your own doubts and shames and fears. If you had God completely locked and loaded inside, like where you can totally hear the voice of God, but somebody approached you and tried to give you a haunting statement, like bringing up the past, God would not respond the way we typically respond. Immediately hurt, immediately defensive, immediately whatever else, in denial or whatever else. The voice of God. One time Helen, who wrote A Course in Miracles, agnostic, not really at all into hearing voices since she was a psychologist. That wasn't a good thing. So she's hearing this voice and it's Jesus. It doesn't really make sense to her to be hearing this voice. So, she was trying to bear it and deal with it, but she gradually started realizing this voice that's coming to me is love. You see, just because it's a little edgy doesn't mean it's not God. It was pushing her buttons because she was Jewish, yet she was hearing Jesus' voice. She was an atheist, yet she was hearing a spiritual religious figure. She was a psychologist, yet she's hearing voices. In other words, nothing in her was really okay with any of that. But deeper, she could feel there was something right about it. Just like I could say something up here, it could rub you the wrong way, irritate you. Try to get past the irritant and see if there's still anything good inside. And if not, then I played the role of a ghost to you today, perhaps, and just don't listen to it. But if you can listen past it and you say, wow, I didn't really like that one piece. He's talking about we have to heal wounds. And I don't think that. I don't believe that. It's in the past. That's fine. Ghosts are in the past too. Ghosts are people that passed away. So they're gone too. They're the past. What are you going to do with them? Well, I'm just going to ignore it. Because ghosts are from the past, but are they? Because a ghost is not an apparition. A ghost is it's a memory of someone. Does it mean they didn't exist? You have to learn. So the Bible's going to tell you this. Is there anything you can learn from these past voices? Do you just completely ignore them? For the most part, yes, but is there any value at all? That's the point I'm making. There's only one point to the ghost, the apparition, or anything. Ask yourself this. Is there anything I can learn from that statement? Because we're told in the scriptures that God does not endorse regret, but rather asks us, can you learn from anything from that experience? So a ghost, I'm not saying, is completely worthless. I'm saying don't let these voices control you. But a ghost is a memory, and a memory is saying blah, blah, blah about something. All you have to do before you retire that ghost is, what is it I can learn from that? And goodbye. Don't live with it. Don't move in with it. Don't host it. Don't do anything else with it. Don't have tea with it. Don't have conversations with it. Just get what you were supposed to learn so you can release regret and the ghost disappears. The apparitions, if they're anything at all, grab what you think you can learn from it. If you say there's an apparition and I was startled and then I became scared, I can still learn from the fact that I got scared seeing an apparition. Grab what you can learn from it and turn from it. Walk away. Bless you, whoever that was, sneezing. See voices out of nowhere. We don't ignore them. We try to make the best of it. So, whatever happens in life, we're learning all the voices of the past. We start retiring them. We don't judge them. At the most, we can say, what can I learn from you? Because it might have some relevance, some message for me. What can that be? Learn and then move on. Don't obsess on them. Some of you know about this native tradition. There's a native ritual some tribes practice, which was that when you go before the tribal leaders, they would have a council, and you go there and you say, well, I'm having a particular problem. And they would say, well, tell us the problem. And then you share what the problem is. Well, so-and-so's upset me. So-and-so did something to offend me. They hear you. Then they advise what you can do about it. You go back later, say a month later, I'm having a problem. What's the problem? Well, I got this person and they did this to me. Well, yeah, you told us about that. Yes, but I'm still mad at them. All right, here's our advice. They give their advice. A month later, you go back again. I'm really mad at that person. Why? Well, they did such and such. You've already told us that. And then they just turn their backs. Do you understand the metaphor of that? Those tribal leaders will turn their back on you. Now again, in towns like Sedona and some places on the planet, they dissed you. They actually did you a service. They're saying enough is enough. You're welcome to obsess on your problems, but don't expect us to do it. They even refer to people that become possessed as being obsessed and oppressed. Those are various terms they use synonymously with possession. You're being obsessed and oppressed. So when you obsess on a problem, see what's happening? When you obsess on a problem, you're allowing a demon to live in you. There's a point where you got to go, enough is enough. And please don't confuse my saying, because I made that point a few minutes ago. It's not that we're saying there's no value to them. A ghost once lived and or meant something to you. If you see the ghost of your mom, even if you didn't get along with her, I would allow her one time. Say what you need to say. I'll do what I can with it and we're done. I didn't say you'd have to diss them all. It appears that way. If there's any value, bring it on and then we're done. And if you have a thing you obsess on, try to get what you're obsessed about. What is it that's making you obsess? What are you worried about? Well, I just want this fixed. I want to be heard. By the way, which part of you needs to be heard? The perfect God part? I don't think so. It's the wounded part. So even in that, this person's bugging me is also still a message. Even though they're a ghost phantom type of metaphor, they're still showing me something about myself, because the only way I could have a ghost haunting me, the only way I can have a demon oppressing me and possessing me, the only way I can have a phantom appearing over and over is because there's a resonance somewhere in here. On my Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook site, I asked a question of everybody, I think it was yesterday. What recurring dreams do you have? I think maybe that's where I got the idea to maybe talk about this more. But what recurring dreams? In fact, I read it this morning and one person said they had a dream of a ghost in their house. And I think that's probably where I got some ideas for this today. But, it's just that. Dreams, recurring dreams, phantoms, and all the voices in our head, the recurring voices, phantoms, and dreams have one primary purpose. If we're ignoring something, it keeps trying to show up to show us something. Recurring is not for no reason. It's trying to show us something. But is it my ego and fears and wounds haunting me? If I don't get the message, they are haunting me. If I get the message, I've turned it into something constructive and bid it farewell. And that's all we're needing to do. Turn it into lemonade if it's lemons. Turn it into lemonade. Extract something from it. Squeeze the lemon. Get the dream and interpret it. Figure out what the phantom means. Why does that keep happening? Pull the meaning from it and then dismiss the messenger. That's all we have to do. In the native ceremony, it looks really strange to some people. But you can only go to them so many times and they turn their back. And I said, they're doing you a service. They're saying, you should be doing what we're doing to you. You should be doing to that voice of hate or whatever it is in your head. Is that making sense? Turn your back on it. And my God, I've seen that in this town. I've seen it here at Unity of Sedona. If we don't enable somebody enough, if they want to complain about something, and then they want to do it again a week later, and then a few weeks later, and then another month later, and then 6 months later, there's a point where we're like, we heard you. We've done what we could. This is exactly the pattern I'm asking everybody to practice. We've extracted what you heard. We've done what we could about it. And that's that. And it could be, you wouldn't believe it, but I'll just exaggerate. It could be like, I don't want that person putting their hair up in a bun. It's that kind of stuff sometimes. Like, what do you want us to do about that? Well, tell them to take it down. I don't like it, Well, track it. What is it about? Did a samurai hurt you or something at some time in another life? I don't know what happened. Track it. And they don't like us asking them to look inside to see what it's about. No, because that would be too responsible. So what do you want us to do? Ask them to. And then that really puts us in a weird place. Because if we tell them, it's kind of weird, but somebody wanted us to ask you to take your hair down and not put it up. That feels weird. That person can get hurt and talk bad about us. Or if we don't do it, this person's going to walk away. Oh, they dissed me. I asked them to do something that was really important to my soul, and they just don't care over there at Unity of Sedona. And we're like, wow, what a trippy position to be in. But you got to do what you got to do. We do everything we can to hear, and beyond the hurt, we hear the love, with the judgments people have of each other and the little gossips. We hear it. We do our best to process it. We do our best to turn it into something good and even bring people, tracking and make it into healing. But when people don't want an exorcism, they're not going to receive it. When they don't want to heal that, they're not going to heal it. And that's when you have to say, oh, I see. Okay. We've done what we could to heal this, and yet the phantom wants to still do this. The poltergeist, the ghost, the demon wants to still oppress because we've cleaned this up, but it has an original contract that says, I'm allowed to haunt you. You can work more deeply to clear that contract. There was a great Kung Fu TV show episode where this demonic stuff was happening, and it was oppressing the monks and all this. And they went to the one main monk and they said, there's something about you that's attracting this demon. And they were asking him questions so he could try to see what was in him that might have allowed this to enter their monastery, you know? And he said, and he sat in meditation and he looked, and he didn't have to find it. It's just, are you even open that there might be something in you that drew this? And the other monk said, you do your work, personal work, you sit, and we're going to do some cord cutting. We're going to go and do some spiritual deep work aside from you. You do your work. We're going to go over here and go into some deep fasting and meditation to clear this energy. And in the meantime, you know, Kwai Chang, who's physically embodied, had to do some things physically to try to clear this situation up. The point is, sometimes you have to hit things from all sides. So if you have something that oppresses you, an addiction, get some help to support your own practice of not listening to that voice. By the same token, you can ask each other. You know, sometimes I get into judgments about that person. If you hear me say anything, do me a favor and call me on it so I can work on that. You see, call on the person physical to next to you to help you. Call on those who can hold space and pray and meditate to support your healing, but also do your own personal work. Look inside and say, you know, is there something in me that is allowing this? Is there a resonance? And sometimes there's no seeming resonance. Who would have thought that house that I went to, who would have associated a beautiful, innocent little child over that? We don't have ways in our head to associate everything properly. Just do your best to accept if something is in your life, physically haunting you, chemically haunting you, mentally haunting you, judgmentally, whatever it is. If it's not allowing peace, it's haunting you. If your household is not a peaceful household, it's already haunted. No, I'm not saying literally spirits. Remember, poltergeist, apparitions, phantoms, there's all kinds of non-entity things that still seem to exist because we feed them energy. So, as I'm coming to a close, remember, turn your back at times. It doesn't have to be that blatant, but turn your back at times. Say no. Have the courage to say no to gossip and garbage that goes around in life. Say no, man. Be different. Be the exorcist for yourself and others. You know, what do you think that's about? God, I just really don't like that person. Don't go, me neither. How did that help? You have some dirt on them? Because I have some really good stuff. How's that helping? You are now creating a cemetery with all kinds of haunting little creatures. So instead, I'm not saying diss them, but what you could do when they say, I really don't like that person. Why? What's up? You can look inquisitive. You can look like you're almost interested. I would do that. You know, I don't say, oh my God, don't say such things, la 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 la, you know, as though it's going to harm me energetically. I know that I can handle it if I say to you, why? What's going on? And you could tell me the most gruesome thing in the world about them, and it's unlikely going to do anything inside of me about the person, believe it or not. I've had sessions with lots of you in this room, and you told me all kinds of amazing things, and it doesn't change me at all, my thoughts of you, you know? I mean, a couple of you, but no, I'm kidding. So please, let's learn to live this concept, love and grace. Not haunting voices. I want to hear the voice that is the grace of God. I want to hear love and grace. You know, just any two words, but those are really great ones. Love and the grace of God. The grace of God is opposite the judgments, the voices, the phantoms, the hauntings. The grace of God neutralizes all of that. Start listening to voices that neutralize the negatives. Don't feed the negatives, don't enhance them, don't water them, don't feed them, but also don't pretend they're not there. It's okay to see them. And when they voice themselves, is there a value you can extract? Yes or no does not mean, yes or no, whatever the answer, you still are done with it. It serves nothing for me now. I got what I needed to get and I move on. The positives need to be made realized. Realized means to make real. Focus on the positive voices so that you can make realized those positives. Make real those positives. Turn your back on, say goodbye to the negatives because they are not to be realized, because they are not real. It's quite all right. You know, you have no place here. You have no power here. What are you, Jesus said to this child that was possessed? And they answered, we are legion, meaning we're the voice of all kinds of issues. We are all kinds of hatred. We are all kinds of beings. Did he say, oh, man, a legion? Oh, I can't. One or two. But geez, get it? But a whole legion, oh, I can't do much about it. Do you understand it didn't matter? Legion, great. Get out. You're done. No, Jesus, don't do that. We sometimes are worried about saying no because we might be hurting those people. But wait, the voices that they're depicting are gross. They're negatives that are trying to hook you in and possess you. It's okay to say goodbye to them. Oh, but will we be hurting them? You know, like the wicked witch, I'm melting. It won't even scream, I'm melting. And if it did, say goodbye. Because they're just phantoms. Typically, the voices in our head that haunt us, guys, are phantoms, which means they're just fake images. They're not there. You're not going to be harming an ego when you say no to the ego. There's no ego that's going to be harmed. They gave it that image with Archangel Michael spearing, Satan, and all the depiction of Michael fighting Satan and then spearing him and killing him. So we think, to some degree, God, that's harsh. Is that what we're supposed to do to our ego? No. You just simply stop enjoying what it has to say. Stop being addicted. There's something you get out of that. Hey, look, an accident. There's something creepy in people that feeds on that. And all we have to do is see that thing is not very nice. That it doesn't bring us the love we're searching for. Just choose. Don't go overboard and make it religion. I must not listen to that. Just see it and almost laugh at it. You got to be kidding me. What purpose is there for that? When you hear voices that say, judge, condemn, do this or that, why? It doesn't do me any good. I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. You see what I'm saying? Be that objective and clear about it. Just not interested. And it shifts to good cop, bad cop, back the other way. It doesn't matter. And they just slowly fade because they're realizing they're not being fed here. They have to go somewhere where they're being fed. Even darker energies, and if it is an actual entity, would not prefer hanging around someplace that it's not fed. So they'll try, because that's a great victory when they can take over the mind of someone who is spiritual, but just learning to say no, they go, this is too much. This is too hard. I got to go find somebody who's weak-willed, and there are lots of them. I'm closing with this quote. Let me think only what God would have me think, and not think what God would not have me think. From A Course in Miracles. Let me think only what God would have me think. God, just walk around your house with that one. Start thinking about other things. You start thinking about judgmental thoughts, including on yourself. Oh, I'm getting old. Oh, I'm getting this. Oh, I'm dying alone. I just know it's going to happen. Oh my God, insurance is calling tomorrow and I got to deal with paper. All that stuff. Almost none of the things we fear happen. Then what's the point? Well, I guess it didn't do any harm either, did it? I thought, I was worried. Nothing happened. Oh no. The more you feed on those things, even though they're not real and did not happen, you still created a fertile soil for more to come. You may not see it, but it's there. You have made fertile the soil for those weeds, those weed thoughts, including beings. No. There is no place for you here. Have that kind of dialogue, almost like you're an exorcist. Be gone. Have courage. Even if you're literally in interaction with spiritual beings like that, tell them, out, be gone. You have no place here, no interest in you here. But be willing to look at what they bring up inside of you so that you're not lying when you say there's no room for you here. If they feed on fear, are you fearful? If they feed on worry, are you worried? Look at yourself and you'll rid the desire and the need for them to show up and teach you anything. This is part of our spiritual practice, guys. It's not a talk about the lovey-dovey and joy-filled and all that, the good feeling stuff. Instead, it's about courage brought to another level. Let's show up, man. Backbone. Not just what you can do for other people, but right here. There's a whole household right here that I am. And am I allowing beings to live and haunt my attic, my basement, this room, that room, my kitchen, my refrigerator? Am I allowing the voices of negativity to haunt me? Say no. No more. Done. It's not serving any purpose. And just remember, be gone. Remember, let me not think any thoughts that God would not have me think. And instead, let me think thoughts that God would have me think. Any terminology that works for you. Let me only be as God would have me be. Let me only feel as God would have me feel. All those kinds of affirmations. Say no. And you'll hear that voice again. Oh, but that person, I thought I dealt with this. Let me only think God thoughts. But that person, let me only think. And you'll go, but I'm losing. You're winning. You're winning. You can't say that and it not have a positive effect. But if you've invested in allowing yourself to judge or do this or that for a while, it'll look like it's going to go on a little longer. Why? Because it's legion, not one. It's many historic voices, many karmas. So it'll look like it's a big force for you to fight. But do what Christ did. No. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how often I've fed you. We're done. Be gone. And sit down and ask yourself courageously, is there something about this that I can still learn? Get it? Give thanks for that lesson, not the thing, not the negative, but the lesson. And again, go back to, wow, thank you. This is great. I got it. You strengthen yourself even from those challenges. Okay? Please take a few centering breaths. Setting aside all the stuff of the world. Let's take a moment to be so courageous that we can actually sit and ask ourselves what it is that haunts us. Be honest. Regrets, shames, guilts. Is there anything that haunts me? It means perhaps thoughts that you obsess on. They can be lusts. They can be shames. They can be addictions, regrets. If there are any negatives that creep into my mind, what might they be? Well, I notice certain colors of people. I notice certain types of people. I have certain opinions about a specific type or group. Whatever it is, anything that seems to grab your mind before you even know it sometimes. And definitely our unhealed wounds, they haunt us. Any of these, look at them all. See such things. And before we bid it farewell, whatever it is that tends to haunt you, just ask yourself an honest question. If I, in any way whatsoever, invited this to me, if I in any way, unbeknownst to me, allow this voice to go on and on, allow this voice to haunt me, allow myself to even entertain this thought, what reason might there be? What reason might there be? I know it doesn't seem like there's anything you would want to answer, but just use your imagination and be open-minded. If you did have a purpose behind it, a lesson that you could learn, what might it be? The answer could be, it's tapping into my shame. It's reminding me that I have certain issues I haven't completed working on. It could be, I guess it's telling me that maybe I could be a little stronger in my willpower or stronger in my boundaries. Please try to extract a lesson, learn something from this. If we can be responsible enough to learn something, then we are allowed to be responsible enough to then make different choices. If we don't learn anything and try to be responsible and say goodbye to the thing, you have no power to do so because you haven't shown up in your power. Whatever it is you can see, and even if you can't think of anything, then just say this to yourself if you can't think of anything. I know that this is in my life, this voice, this thought, this whatever, and I accept that it's possible there's something I have missed that I can learn from this, and whatever it is, I welcome it now by the grace of God. Even if I don't know what it is, I invite it to integrate as learned, completed, and done. So whether we do that or whether we already did know what it was we learned from it, we now in our minds can say, be gone. You no longer serve a purpose here. You have no place here. Be gone. If it's really strong, get behind me, Satan, meaning move aside. Evil has no place in a good heart, and my heart is filled with God. Give thanks, feel clear. The room, the temple, the house is empty. It's been exorcised. And now invite the angels of God to descend into your temple home. Let them descend into your heart space, your heart center, into your whole being. See it and feel it, just like you would see angels dropping in through the ceiling of a cathedral. They're dropping into the center through your crown and filling your being. Angels are not bodies. They wouldn't overcrowd your space. They fill your being. They fill your heart. See it and feel it. With each breath, the light of God, the angels come to cater to me, to take care of me. Just like Jesus after he said no in the desert. We said no, and they come and minister to us now. Imagine hearing the sound of God actually sharing a tone of love, like a sound, like an om or just ooh, a sound from the heavens down through our crown into our being. And when he does, it does, the angels start to actually get excited and dance and move inside of us. They move with delight because they hear the voice of God. They excite the cells of our body to say no to disease. They stimulate our chakras to become alive and awake and give us a full embodiment in this life so that we're fully alive, physically, emotionally, mentally, and creatively, and spiritually. Really beautiful, bright, bright, bright lights we are. And with that in mind, just entertain for only a second what it would be like to have those voices come back and oppress you again, obsess you again, tease you, haunt you. Look at how different it is. They don't even make sense. They have no place here. Think about it. They have no place. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As I'm filled with this light and this presence, it doesn't make any sense for me to invite a voice of haunting. Guilt, shames, regret. It's what? Be that vivid about it. And the fact that there is no place, it has no place here. Quietly start giving thanks of how good it feels to know that has no place here. I am that I am. I will have no false gods before my Father, Mother, God. And let that all start to fade away and gradually stretch out. Nice job, guys. I pray that made good sense. Think about what we've covered today and see what makes sense, and if any of it specifically stands out for you, can help you make sense, tune into that so that you can integrate that to a deeper level.